On an Alabama beach in 2021, fishing guide David A. Rose pulled something extraordinary out of the water and nobody could figure out what the heck it was. The angler was shocked and confused, thinking he had somehow hooked some kind of bizarre shark on the end of his line. It had taken him nearly 40 minutes to rip the fish out of the water, and it looked like some sort of prehistoric beast from the past. He thought maybe it was a shark, but as David found out later, he had actually caught a Gulf sturgeon. These are some very rare fish and not often found lurking in the Gulf of Mexico. Before catching the Gulf sturgeon, David also caught a Gulf kingfish, a couple of stingrays, a catfish, a pufferfish, and even a crab. He was quite an experienced fisherman. He hooked the sturgeon using dead shrimp for bait. It was over 6 feet or 2 meters long and weighed around 130 pounds or 60 kilos, making it about half the size of what they can really grow to be. These fish have been around since the dinosaurs and can be up to an astounding 14 feet or 4.2 meters long. The main part of their internal skeleton is made of cartilage, very similar to a shark. But unlike a shark, their outer body is covered in bony, armor-like plates for defense. After taking a few pictures with the prehistoric monster, David threw it back in the ocean. After all, these are federally protected animals and are not allowed to be killed. Thanks, David. The lancetfish was a rare fish to encounter. This was very simply because of the fact that fishermen could never reach them for one reason or another, and thus the only true way to find them was if they were washed up on shore after dying, which honestly applies to a lot of sea creatures, both bizarre and non. Over the last few years though, that's started to change. Fishermen are using different techniques now, and lancetfish are being caught more and more frequently, much to the joy of scientists who are using the fish to learn more about the oceans. What really makes the lancetfish so special though isn't its rarity, but that it lives in a part of the ocean where the light of the sun barely reaches at all. Known as the midnight zone, there the waters of the ocean are pitch black, meaning that fish either have to create their own light or use their other senses to get around. So it's a fish that is more than happy to be without light, and that's a bit bizarre in context. The fishermen who were lucky enough to catch them put them back into the ocean due to their inability to survive in things like aquariums, adding yet another bizarre fact to a pretty bizarre and frightening looking fish. Oh, and if you need a reason to never seek out this fish, it's believed to be both very aggressive and cannibalistic in nature. Some even refer to it as nature's Hannibal.
There are a lot of pretty creepy fish crawling around in the lakes, rivers and oceans of our world, and one notoriously creepy fish is the goonch catfish. This thing is an ugly monster that can get up to 6.6 feet long and weigh up to 400 pounds, and an enormous one was recently caught in the Ramganga River in northern India. This particular creepy goonch catfish is unique for its size, as a local news report claims it could have been the biggest catfish ever found inside a Himalayan river. But it never got to be weighed, as the villagers who caught this slippery catfish were too hungry and ate it before any kind of certification could be done. Or maybe they were just scared of it. This massive goonch catfish looks more like a shark or a whale than a fish. It's absolutely enormous. The villagers had to carry it back home tied to a massive pole. It took 2 men to carry it between them. The goonch catfish is pretty terrifying and appeared on an episode of River Monsters called Killer Catfish, Season 1, Episode 2. In this episode, Jeremy Wade investigated a series of freshwater attacks on people in the Kali River. Everyone thought this thing was to blame. It is rumoured to have developed a taste for human flesh after feeding on corpses thrown into the river after funeral ceremonies. However, it doesn't seem likely that this fish would make people disappear. I certainly wouldn't mess with this monster, but it probably made for one impressive fish fry. Let me know if you think this fish is dangerous in the comments below.
In Lake Erie, there is a very bizarre sea creature known as the burbot. Almost nobody has seen it, even fewer people have caught it, and most people don't even know it's there. But it is. The burbot is a giant eel-like fish that hangs out at the bottom of the lake and is the only member of the cod family that lives in freshwater. According to Mike Durkalik, an aquatic biologist with Cleveland Metro Parks, the burbot is a weird and secretive fish, and not many people have what it takes to catch them. In December, Durkalik caught 2 of these elusive fish in gill nets, but not just because he could. He caught them to add implants to the fish with transmitters and then release them back into the wild, allowing scientists to learn a bit more about their behavior. Lake Erie in the 50s and 60s used to be bursting with these burbot, but then came industrial pollution and the invasion of the deadly sea lamprey, which feed on the native Ohio fish. Today, there aren't very many burbot left. making them a very slippery catch. In 1935, a pair of brothers decided to go fishing off of the coast of Australia. While off in the waters near Sydney, they decided to bait their lines, leave them in the water, and then go to sleep. When they woke up, they found their fishing line frayed and a bunch of fish parts all over it. When they reeled it in, there was a tiger shark attached to it, and it was still alive. The brothers took the shark to shore, but the tiger shark wouldn't settle down, nor die. So the brothers gave it to a nearby aquarium, which objectively might have been the best thing for this shark, given what was about to happen next. You see, a little while after being given to the aquarium, the shark went and threw up. Nothing wrong with that, right? Except what he threw up was a human arm. Now, being fair, tiger sharks are known to attack humans, and what's more, if a tiger shark was to go around and eat a human, they would naturally have some body parts within them. It's just rare that we get to that point in regards to seeing the parts come back out. But that's not the only bizarre thing that happened with this shark. Examination of the arm found that the victim was most definitely not dead in the ocean somewhere, as the arm was cut off by a knife and a tattoo on the arm was able to be identified and tied to the death of a former boxer turned police informant, Jim Smith. He decided to blackmail some people and got killed for his troubles. The arm was kept as proof of the deed, and then, once done, the killers threw it into the ocean. This arm actually helped solve the mystery of Smith's death. So, while a bit disgusting and incredibly bizarre in how these random events led to a case being solved, some good came about because the shark upchucked an arm.
A British man in Thailand recently caught the world's biggest and creepiest carp after an incredible 80-minute battle to get the fish from the water and into his arms. Just imagine wrestling with a fishing line for a full 80 minutes. It's one intense workout, especially dealing with Siamese carp, which are absolutely huge. Not to mention they are super creepy with their weird scales, stubby fins and bug eyes. This particular catch, however, is something of a miracle. As the biggest carp ever caught, it weighed an astounding 232 pounds. That's 105 kilograms. The carp was so heavy that they had to use special scales on a stainless steel tripod just to get a proper measurement. The man who caught the fish couldn't even hold it by himself. It took the help of 2 other people just to raise the carp out of the water to get a photograph. Siamese carp are the biggest species in the entire world, and they are found naturally in all kinds of river basins around Asia. And as the name implies, the Siamese carp is extremely common in Thailand. Just imagine finding this chunky fellow in your swimming pool. He looks big enough to take down a human, and if he had managed to drag the fisherman into the water, there's no doubt who would have won that struggle.
Nicholas Colangelo was out ice fishing in Pennsylvania with his friends. They were expecting to catch a few little fish and just to have a good time out on the ice. The trip they'd taken previously had been quite successful. Nicholas had caught a huge musky fish from under the ice and was hoping to net another one this time. Instead, Nicholas caught something rather unusual. It wasn't a fish, and it definitely didn't belong under the ice. What was this mysterious creature? It was a duck. Specifically, it was a very rough-looking merganser duck that probably shouldn't have been under the ice at all. These ducks can dive for short periods of time, sure, but they definitely can't dive for the whole winter. These ducks usually migrate south to rivers that don't have any ice in them. This one must have gotten stuck as the ice was forming over the lake. Then it spent the last few weeks trying desperately to get out. Nicholas may have not caught himself a giant fish, but at least he gifted the duck its freedom. This particular fisherman tale is of a frightening, mud-dwelling creature that man wouldn't know what to do with upon seeing it. Andrew Rose was fishing in the Northern Territory's Kakadu National Park when he snagged a 15-centimeter long worm goby, a rare, mud-dwelling fish with no eyes, a bony head, and sharp teeth. So again, not something you would know what to do with because your natural instinct might be to call it a monster. It looked prehistoric, Rose told Guardian Australia. It looked like something you see in the movies. The lure wasn't swimming right. I pulled it and it had this strange-looking fish on it. We didn't know what it was. We took photos, took him off the hook, and put him back in the water. While the creature was eventually identified correctly, the angler, his friend, and many people who saw the creature online via the pictures had another notion, mainly that it was very much like the xenomorph from the legendary movie franchise Alien. Rose's friend said that it even resembled the particular xenomorph that came out of one of the stomachs of the original Alien crew. Obviously, that isn't the case, and we should all be grateful it isn't. But now, one has to wonder if this is a case of life imitating art or art imitating life.
Of course, everyone wants to see the most bizarre mutant fish. The fish we're talking about now is a two-mouthed trout caught in New York. But it's not the only one of its kind. There have been several reports in recent years of mutant trout being caught with two jaws instead of one. This newest incident, as reported by The Independent, was as recent as 2019. And yes, there are lots of theories swirling around about this bizarre fish. It was hooked out on Lake Champlain in Plattsburgh, New York, and the photos of the fish show that it has a normal mouth, but then a secondary jaw underneath that doesn't appear to be fully formed. But it definitely has two mouths. The woman who caught the fish believes that the secondary mouth could have been caused by an injury, very likely from another fisherman. However, there are lots of other interesting theories. Some people say it could have been a mutation, it could have been a birth defect, or it could have been caused by pollution. Other people believe it could have something to do with the sea monster that is believed to live in Lake Champlain, although the fish only weighed about 6 pounds, or 3 kilograms, so it's not much of a sea monster. According to an expert doctor and fish researcher at London's Natural History Museum, this trout is actually pretty normal. Apparently, all fish have a set of gill arches behind their jaws. The doctor believes that this fish either suffered from a birth defect or an injury that caused the skin and muscle that would normally cover that portion of his body to be lost, and therefore the skeletal structure was exposed and it looked just like a second mouth. I prefer to think of it as a radioactive mutant. Maybe another one will be discovered with extra fins or even claws. Yikes!
Nobody is really sure where the dolphin fish gets its name. Some say it's because the dolphin fish swims frequently with dolphins out in the ocean. Some say it's simply because they act like dolphins by jumping out of the water playfully. But the dolphin fish also goes by another name too, the mahi-mahi. The name mahi-mahi literally means strong in Polynesian, and the name originates from Hawaii, where the fish are frequently caught. These fish are some of the most fascinating to catch as they're large, colorful, and honestly just strange to look at. Dolphin fish usually have a bright golden hue on their sides and then a bright green or blue color on their heads. What's really interesting is that as they start to die, the color fades and they become dull yellow. Even though mahi-mahi can grow to be over 6 feet or 2 meters in length, they actually start life as microscopic larvae hiding in seaweed. Because of this very smart breeding behavior, dolphin fish reproduce like crazy. It's highly unlikely the species will ever become endangered, even though they are so popular with fishermen. But just because they are often caught doesn't make it easy. Like I said, their name means strong, and it takes a lot of effort just to reel one in. Have you ever fished for dolphin fish, aka mahi-mahi? Not all catches have to be fish, or even aquatic in nature. And trust us when we say there have been plenty of odd finds amongst catches that shocked even those catching it. For example, Fritz Bajorat went to sail his boat in 2009. He'd been going through some hard times, including splitting up with his wife. He was never seen alive again. Then in 2016, a couple of fishermen were doing some work about 50 miles off the coast of the Philippines, and while doing that work, they came across the ship belonging to Fritz Bajorat. And inside it was Fritz, and he was completely mummified, which was very odd given that he was encased in water. The oddness of the find doesn't stop there though, because Fritz was found in his ship at the position of being right next to the radio. Given that no distress signal was heard from his ship when he disappeared in 2009, it's believed he was just resting there when a heart attack or stroke or other natural death happened upon him, and this was later confirmed that a heart attack took his life. It's still not fully known what exactly happened to him, but it is a catch that is most bizarre, given all that happened, both past and present.
If you've ever been interested in kissing a fish on a dare, this is going to be some good news for you. A recent catch out of Malaysia shows a bizarre fish with lips that are weirdly human. And yes, it even has teeth that look extremely human. In fact, everything about the mouth of this fish is human. It could kiss you and bite you at the same time. If that's not the creepiest thing you've ever seen on a fish, well, I don't know what fish you're looking at. And while a lot of people were claiming the photo to be edited after it rose online in 2020, it is 100% real. This type of fish is actually known as a triggerfish, and there are about 40 different kinds of them according to National Geographic. The biggest fish is the stone triggerfish, and it can grow to be around 3.5 feet or 1 meter long. They are typically found in the eastern Pacific and live at the bottom of the ocean, sucking out crabs and worms from the bottom of the sea with their weird lips. The fish's weird teeth are actually used to bite apart sea urchins and eat them. The specific fish in this photo is most likely a black patch triggerfish, and it's a pretty well-known species around the Great Barrier Reef, which does include Malaysia, the area the fish was caught. I still wouldn't get near that face, too creepy. Number 6. Human-faced fish. Another very human-like fish was caught creeping out tourists in a Chinese lake last year. The video of the human-faced fish made it online in 2019, and it was apparently taken by a visitor outside of the city of Kunming in southern China. The video clearly shows a creature with a fish's body and the face of a person. There is literally no other way you can possibly interpret the fish. It looks like a bald man's frowning face, like something terrifying out of a horror movie. The woman who actually films the video of the fish can be heard screaming in the background that the fish turned into a fairy. Of course, fairies don't exist, and there is definitely not a fish with a human face. It's really just a weird looking carp with bizarre features that makes it look a lot like a human-faced fish. According to The Sun, it's not the only one of its kind. In 2009, a carp with a human face was discovered in South Korea, and in 2010, another carp with a human face was sold for over $40,000. In 2016, a third carp with a human face was caught in the Hunan province of China by a primary school teacher who, instead of eating the fish, decided to keep it in his home. Could this be the next step in evolution or just a weird coincidence? You be the judge.
In Po Delta of Italy, a fisherman made the catch of a lifetime when he hooked a giant catfish that looked like some kind of monster from the never-ending story. The fisherman's name was Dino Ferrari, and he caught a potential world record-shattering Wells catfish that weighed over 280 pounds, or 127 kilos. It was also nearly 9 feet long, or 3 meters, making it a true monster of a catfish. What's really incredible is that according to the Seattle Times, the current record for a Wells catfish is slightly above an incredible 300 pounds, or 136 kilos. Still, Dino's fish could be the largest ever caught only using a sport fishing rod and reel, which really is in a category of its own. After taking pictures of him holding his catch, the Italian fisherman released it back into the water where it quickly swam away. The giant Wells catfish got to live another day, most likely terrorizing all the other fish that are much smaller than it. In Alaska in 2018, the family of angler Sarah Vassar-Alford were on what was supposed to be a basic fishing trip. However, things got very weird when they pulled up a creature that can honestly only be described as alien. It was bright orange, had all sorts of wriggling tendrils, and looked like nothing they had ever seen before. And one look at it will likely give you a similar curious feeling in regards to wondering what the heck you're looking at. Sarah took a video clip of the creature and posted it online for the world at large to see, and various people weighed in on what it was, and just as importantly, what it wasn't. It's since been identified as a basket star, a species of echinoderm similar to a sea star, aka starfish, that hangs out on the ocean floor, using its spindly, spiderweb-like tentacles to ensnare passing prey. It's good to know what this creature is, so I don't see it in my nightmares later. Also, should you be curious of the fate of the creature, once the video was made, Sarah returned it to the waters of Alaska.
A creepy octopus fish has been reeled in near Coney Island, New York. This is a classic example of a mysterious deep-sea fish being unexpectedly caught by a fisherman. Many people have pulled out bizarre things over the years, but this one is really strange. It looks like a monster from an alien movie, or like a baby kraken that somehow got too close to the surface. It appears to have 3 tentacle legs, a weird fat head that almost looks like an octopus, and basically no bones. But it's probably not really that mysterious. The fish is most likely a clear-nosed skatefish, which is closely related to a stingray. It could just be that its wings are tucked underneath its body and don't protrude at all. In the video where the fish is flopping around on the boards and looking a lot like an alien, it's highly likely that the fish is just suffering and misshapen because it's not in the water where it's supposed to be. Underwater, this fish would be floating flat over the bottom just like a stingray. On land, it looks like a weird malformed sea monster.
In Mexico, a strange creature was pulled out of the water and mistaken for an April Fool's joke. The creature looked kind of like a fish, but also a little like a shark. It was discovered swollen, pink, and a little burnt. The fish was caught by the captain of a tourist fishing boat in Cabo named Jaime Rendon. The weird catch was made on the southern tip of the Baja California peninsula. After the catch, Jaime posted the pictures online, not really sure what the thing was. But just because it so happened to be the 1st of April, everyone thought it was just a big joke. Nobody took the creature seriously, thinking Jaime must have just made the thing up using Photoshop, just to trick everyone. But then someone came forward to identify the animal. According to fish experts, it was actually a very real fish, something known as a swell shark, a very small and rather evasive shark found throughout the Pacific Ocean. It's significantly smaller than most sharks you may be familiar with, but it does have a pretty interesting defense mechanism. When it needs to evade a larger predator, it fills its belly with water to look bigger. It also inflates itself with air when close to the surface, looking more like an inflatable pool toy than a real animal. Usually, these sharks are quite shy with divers and pretty harmless unless aggressively provoked. They tend to avoid humans. Most swell sharks are a soft yellow-brown color. The reason this shark was so pale and sunburnt is probably because it had albinism, lacking any kind of pigmentation and making it pale as a ghost, and indeed, a very crazy catch. One of the biggest wonders of the ocean is that we can't possibly know all that's within it, but we can guess based on fossil records and other sources. The problem though is that sometimes a creature is caught that boggles the mind simply because it was believed extinct. In this case, 65 million years extinct, or so people thought. Despite this extinct status, the coelacanth was rediscovered by a fisherman off the coast of Africa. This fish was from the Cretaceous period, back when dinosaurs ruled the Earth. As time went on and various changes to the Earth occurred, it was just assumed that the coelacanth was extinct, especially when fossils of the creature were found and no other fish in the water that we knew of looked like it. So this wasn't a case of a random guess leading to a premature belief, it was seemingly validated. Then, in 1938, a marine biologist found this long-dead fish while looking through a fisherman's hole, and not only was it a coelacanth, it looked exactly like the fossils that were found of its kind. But how is this possible? The answer is that humanity has sadly only mapped a small fraction of the ocean, and we're constantly learning more about it all the time. There are new species found in the ocean every year due to it not being mapped well, so it's not hard to imagine the coelacanth species simply not being noticed until a very lucky fisherman caught it. Eventually, another species of coelacanth was found in Indonesia, further proving that the species is alive and well, and that this bizarre catch was one that was very fortuitous to the scientific community.
A fisherman in Texas has caught one of the strangest worms that you will ever see in your life. It's known as a bearded fireworm, and it's not only creepy, it's super poisonous. As the story goes, the woman was at the pier in Port Isabel when she reeled in her line. At first, she thought she had gotten seaweed tangled on her hook, but after a closer look, she realised it was a creepy worm. The worm was covered in bristles and coloured bright red. Luckily, the woman who reeled in the bizarre worm was smart enough to recognise the bright colours and not touch it. If she had, the fireworm could have given her an extremely painful sting. Fireworms spend most of their lives on the floor of the ocean and use their bristles to stab predators and inject them with powerful neurotoxin. A single sting will make you feel like you're on fire, and the sensation can last for hours. These creepy worms hide under rocks in the daytime and then come out at night to eat the remains of already dead sea animals. As far as creepy things go, these worms are up there. Great, now we all have another thing to fear stepping on when we go for a swim at the beach.
Recently, in 2020, a fisherman in Thailand caught one of the ugliest fish in existence. He found a fish with a strange yellow body, weird white dots all over it, and a face just like that of a human, only way creepier. The fisherman caught the bizarre creature in his crab trap and almost threw it back in the water because it was so hideous, and he was so shocked. He didn't know what to do with the weird catch, so he handed it over to wildlife officials because he was worried that such a disturbing fish would give him bad luck in the future. Now, it's believed the fish was a type of stargazer called Ichthyoscopus polycharis. Stargazers live at the bottom of a particular body of water, hidden underneath the sand with nothing but their eyes and mouth poking out, waiting for some unfortunate victim to swim directly over them. Their name stargazer is a little confusing because they don't actually gaze at the stars at all. They hide in the shallow waters of the Mediterranean as well as the Atlantic Ocean. The stargazer is what you would call an ambush predator, and they are very good at it. The only time their skills are lacking is when they accidentally bite onto a fisherman's hook. Not a good day for the stargazer. This particular catch happened in September of 2019 by a Norwegian fisherman named Oskar Lundahl. He went viral on the internet when he found himself looking at a fish that was downright dinosaur-like in shape and appearance. Its eye caught a lot of people's attention due to it not being the right size compared to other fish of its like. Oscar Lundahl nearly jumped out of his fishing boat when he pulled the strange creature onto his boat, and it's not hard to see why that would be. The man was fishing for halibut, and this is not that at all. He told The Sun, "We were looking for blue halibut, which is a rare species about 5 miles offshore. I had 4 hooks on one line and felt something quite big on the end of it. It took me about 30 minutes to reel it in because it was over 2,600 feet deep. As for what the fish honestly is, that would be a ratfish. It dates back over 300 million years, which indeed puts it in the realm of dinosaurs. And they are very special because they're known to not be caught by fishermen because they prefer to live in the deeper parts of the ocean. So this is a fisherman's tale that involves ancient creatures, a lucky catch, and a fisherman who likely hopes to never see anything like this again. And we can't blame him."
It's not a typo. A fish that looks just like an alien has been caught in Norway. While some people are saying this fish resembles a creepy prehistoric sea monster, others think it looks like a weird alien fish. It was caught by a young Norwegian fisherman back in 2019 off the island of Andøya in Norway. The man who caught the fish was working as a sports fishing guide and was trying to catch blue halibut when he instead caught the creepiest fish of his life. According to him, it took about 30 minutes to reel in the fish. That was because his line was around 2,600 feet deep. The fish that he caught was slimy, it had eyes that were way too big for its body, and it looked like an overgrown tadpole. But the specimen is not actually an alien, of course. It is, however, prehistoric. The fish is known as a ratfish, and it's a relative of the shark dating back to around 300 million years ago. The fish eats crustaceans and is pretty non-threatening, living deep in the ocean. According to the man who caught the fish, it tastes great. The way it looks just turns me off from ever trying it though. I could never eat an alien.
A translucent blob was captured off the coast of New Zealand, and nobody could figure out if it was a plastic bag, a weird fish, or a transparent shrimp. Stuart Fraser was out fishing with his 2 sons when he spotted the strange animal floating at the top of the water and scooped it into their boat. According to Stuart, the blob felt scaly and firm in his hands, kind of like jelly, but there was nothing inside of it except for a weird orange blob that may have been one of its internal organs. Stuart had never seen anything like it before, and neither had his sons. After looking for help online, some fish experts suggested that the mysterious creature could actually be a Salpa majora, a type of fish found only in cold seas and mostly in the Southern Ocean. They can grow to be about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. They sort of look like baby jellyfish, but the two are not related, as Salpa majora are completely harmless, unlike jellyfish, and they're sometimes deadly stingers. The fish has a gelatinous body and only moves thanks to a special system of pumping water through its body. It literally contracts itself like a beating heart to slowly propel itself through the water. Other than that, we don't know too much about the fish. It eats plankton and is very rare, with hardly any sightings of the thing in the wild. In Greek mythology, the chimera is a creature that had the body parts of multiple animals, including a lion, snake, eagle, griffin, and more, depending on the interpretation. In the real world, a chimera is defined as an entity with cells of 2 different organisms living and growing inside of them at the same rate, such as when a Japanese fisherman caught a lobster that had different colorations, ones that were perfectly divided down the middle of its body. Ironically enough, this kind of divide is natural for a lobster, as their body grows separately in each half, but to have this kind of a color formation, especially one this distinct and perfectly divided, is a rarity in and of itself. After it was studied and determined to be a chimera, it was given to Maine's Mount Desert Oceanarium, where it will live out the rest of its life. Still, even though it's a known entity in terms of what went on with this lobster, you can't help but think it's really bizarre.
There's an invasive and super creepy fish plaguing the waterways of Mississippi, and it's being called the fishzilla. Recent catches of the so-called fishzilla, also known as the northern snakehead fish, are beginning to freak out fishermen in the area along the Mississippi. The snakehead fish is not an indigenous species, and the fact that these fish are appearing in bigger and bigger numbers is very disturbing, since they have the potential to wipe out much of the local species and disrupt the ecosystem. Apparently, these fish first came to the region as pets in people's homes, but over the years, they have been let out into the wild and now they are growing in numbers. The reason they are so creepy is because they can crawl out onto the land and survive on the shore. They look a lot like snakes. A northern snakehead can even slime its way across land like a big fat snake. Fish living on land, making their way across the lakes and rivers of the world and preying on the helpless native populations? Sounds like Fishzilla is a pretty smart nickname after all.
In Connecticut, a man named Tim captured a record-breaking blackfish. It happened on October 14th while Tim was out on Captain Bob Wadworth's boat. They had gone out to Two Tree Island in Niantic Bay when Tim suddenly hooked something he felt was huge. Tim had to put his reel into free spool and fight extremely hard to work the fish away from the treacherous bottom. According to Captain Bob, he's pretty used to hearing excited fishermen on his boat. But today was something a little different. From all the commotion, he knew Tim had hooked an amazing catch, but he couldn't quite anticipate turning around to see Tim holding a monster blackfish. It turned out later to be a type of tautog, and it was so huge that it weighed in at 26.6 pounds or 12 kilos, and it was later certified as beating the Connecticut state record by almost 3 full pounds or 1.3 kilos. That makes it one of the biggest tautog blackfish ever and just shy of 2 pounds or 0.9 kilos lighter than the all-time world record. As we've shown you, there are all kinds of bizarre fish in the world, but some of them are just bizarre because you've never seen their species before. However, there have been catches that go beyond that basic level of weirdness, such as when angler Debbie Getters went and pulled out a fish that quite literally had 2 mouths on it. In case you think it's a hoax, it's not. It's a very real fish and was proven to be that. After posting pictures of it online, people were very curious as to how it was born this way, and even how it lived with this unique deformity. Some said it was from an injury, some thought it was because of pollution in the New York lake that it was caught in. Another possibility was that this was a birth defect, which has been documented to happen in various fish over the years. It's impossible to know what caused it, but it happened. And it was very much alive when it was caught. You've got to wonder, are there more of these 2-mouthed fish out there?
This #1 candidate for the creepiest fish looks like an American relative of the famous piranha. It was caught in Oklahoma waters by an 11-year-old girl. Just like with the northern snakehead, this is an invasive species that has no business being anywhere near Oklahoma. The fish is a pacu, and they typically belong in South America. However, people illegally dump them into the lakes and they slowly begin to thrive as apex predators. This particular creepy catch has teeth that are way too human for anyone to feel comfortable with. Opening up this thing's mouth reveals jagged teeth, all bumpy and weird like the fish hasn't brushed them for 30 years. But I'm sure he wouldn't hesitate to make any of us into a snack. I'll be watching very carefully before I set foot in any body of water again.
A fisherman in Oklahoma made a rather bizarre catch at Lake Eufaula. Austin Claunch captured a fish that looked an awful lot like a cow you'd see on a farm. Well, the colouring and pattern did anyway. The fish had a white belly and the black and white markings of an ordinary dairy cow on its back. It was such a weird thing to find that Austin posted the pictures online to see if anyone could give him a bit more information. Without getting much luck, he finally sent the picture to the Oklahoma Wildlife Department, who replied that the fish wasn't a new species or an aquatic cow. Instead, the fish was suffering from leucism, meaning it had partial pigment loss. It was basically halfway to being an albino, which explains why it was so pale and why it had a pink fin. The good news is that a lack of pigment doesn't actually affect a fish's health in any way, and it doesn't affect the way a fish tastes either. Now, let's talk about a tale that was deemed fake right up until it was proven not to be. I'm talking about when a fisherman off Baja, California took pictures of a one-eyed shark and people immediately started crying out fake. Which, in this case, you can see why they would say that. The twist came in when a few weeks after the first pictures were taken, another set of them featuring the one-eyed shark appeared, and this time it appeared to have gotten some age on it. After some investigations by some real reporters, they found out it was a real one-eyed shark. However, there's even another twist here. It was a deformed fetus from a caught pregnant bull shark. How the deformation and albino coloring occurred wasn't clear, but it was clear that it was real and rare. One expert said that 50 of these kinds of creatures have been documented, so that makes it not only a bizarre catch, but an incredibly rare one. It just took a while for the catch to be believed, but better late than never. Thanks for watching, everyone. What did you think of this look at the bizarre catches that various people have made over the years? Does it shock you that these kind of things exist out in the waters? Which one do you think is the most bizarre of the lot? Or do you think there are other bizarre catches out there that'll put these ones to shame? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.